Hello and welcome to Reviews. As always, I'm Plume Noir, and this is Doomsday Clock, issue number 11 of 12. Now, just need to point out that this series started in November 2017, and it didn't start out bi-monthly. So, if it's still keeping to a bi-monthly schedule, in November, it will be 2 years since it started when the last issue will have come out. That is kind of killing this book. But it was tied into the DC Rebirth, all the mysteries going on, and as we see with what's going on with like Snyder and that, and Bendis is doing something with Legion, Legion of Superheroes. The this can't be canon. This is just going to be kind of a what if Elseworlds tale at this point, or just quietly abandoned. That's what I think is going on, which is kind of a shame because Rebirth was such a good win back the crowd moment. It was a fan pleaser. People were excited, and even some of the things like the Three Jokers bit, yeah, kind of silly, but we're at issue 11, and I'm going to be doing some spoilers for this, so, be warned. Um, and I'm going to be honest, I do not understand how Johns is going to be able to tie everything up in one more issue. I mean, let's think about everything that's going on. So, of course, we have the Adrian plot that he's trying to save his Earth by getting John to help him. John being Dr. Manhattan, of course. But Dr. Manhattan refused. He's too busy playing God with the DC universe. All the heroes have left for Mars to see John. Superman is still on Earth recovering after what happened in Russia when he went to try and help Firestorm. And pretty much everyone on Earth is mad at Superman. It started an international incident. We have the whole mystery of the JSA kind of coming back, but they're already coming back in another book, so I don't think that's really going to affect this. We have Saturn Girl, who's been pretty much locked up since she appeared in Rebirth. We have Lex Luthor and Lois Lane. Their little side info we find in this issue. What else? We have, of course, Black Adam here, who is offering asylum to all the metahumans in Kondak, and but mostly it seems to be villains, and now he's going after the U.S. He's making a move there. Rorschach 2, who found out what a horrible person Kovacs was, so now he's given up being Rorschach. There's a lot of threads going on, and I'm pretty sure I missed some. So, I've actually had to lock up my cats. This is my fourth time starting this video. They're really wound up tonight, so you may hear some scratching at the door. Anyway, so let's take a look at this book. It's funny, this first panel, we see the nuclear launch code, and it looks like Batman's actually forcing the guy to turn the key, not actually stopping it. I'm going to skip, well, I will skip a few pages, but I'm going to skim a lot of these pages here, especially in the beginning, because there's a lot of, jumping around. And little bits of dialogue and narration that's coming from various things like TV reports, dialogue going on in the panels, past conversations, Rorschach's journal. Here's where we see Alfred sitting down to read Rorschach's journal, and they realize that Rorschach isn't as crazy as he seems. And of course, Adrian watching television because he binge watches television. Um, but yeah, there's a lot going on in these things, and it kind of helps. It helps speed up the tempo of the storyline. It's like using short sentences when you're writing to really give the beats. Boom, 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 boom. It is kind of doing that. It gives it that sense of sped up tension. But unfortunately, it makes it hard to cover all this because there's also a lot that's I don't want to say it's not moving the plot along. Some of it is, this panel here, you see why Alfred decides to go find Rorschach. Um, but a lot of it's kind of bringing people up to speed, showing where characters are at. So, um, Wonder Woman is one of the few metahuman heroes that didn't go to Mars. So she's basically holding down the fort. Here she's fighting Giganta, which I've never been a fan of loincloth Giganta. There's a creeper like on her boob. Yeah, loincloth. I like orange jumpsuit Giganta because I mean it's kind of weird to think that a 50-foot tall woman in a loincloth, everyone on the ground is getting an eyeful, so to speak. Um, so here we see Lex is bringing Lois into his private vault as Superman wakes up. Now Superman has been recovering after what happened. The world is looking for him. Russia. I think Russia wants him to be turned over for what happened when pretty much they think that Firestorm exploded, but he didn't. And it wasn't John either. Of course, we knew it was Adrian. He explains how he did it. Um, and yeah, here we have Adrian just watching TV, apparently focusing on Giganta's ass. So, um, he's talking with Saturn Girl, who he has captured. He's got locked up, but he also has Johnny Thunder locked up. So he's captured the past and the future. Um, Interesting. So as we go into Lex's vault, he explains how he bought the estate of the actor that's in that noir series that's going on. He bought the state's effects. And one of the things that he had was, you recognize this, it's the picture of Dr. Manhattan and his original girlfriend. And he knows from what's written on the back that the person is most likely named John. And so he's explaining this to Lois and, explaining what's so special about it. And as Lex tells, I've proved many things over the years. The existence of aliens, as you know, but the story behind this picture has eluded me. 2 years ago, when this book started, I began tracking abnormal coronal energy spikes, blah, blah, blah. And as he's tracking this, he's hiding in the bushes as we see the scene from Rebirth when Wally West returns. How could I ever forget you? With the energy in that, it's looks kind of weird. And to think that Lex was hanging out in the bushes the whole time watching the flashes, probably wondering what the hell's going on. That's where he finds the picture again. But wait a minute. He bought that picture in the estate. So why is it there again? Well, that's when we find out that he's been tracing these energy spikes, and at every scene, he finds this picture. So it's like every time that John, Dr. Manhattan, enters the world, as you know, he's been doing this to change history a bit, moving Superman's origin up every few years, moving Alan Scott's Lantern. It seems like he creates a copy of this photograph. Well, it was with him when he got, disintegrated. So here's a great thing. I'm a little disappointed with this book overall, but it's things like this. Each one is absolutely identical. Absolutely identical. But that's not the first time we see something like this. So the Superman gets dressed. That's when the guards come at him. I'm gonna skip these next few pages because basically it's more Adrian talking to Saturn Girl. They're both kind of boasting back and forth. Alfred makes pancakes for Rorschach. Goes out, finds him. Rorschach's sleeping in a street. He's having a nightmare and throws the pancakes because he wants nothing to do with Rorschach. So we'll come back to the story that Adrian's talking about, the mime and marionette. And he says that John was responsible for their incarceration. Everyone believed he hesitated to kill Marionette because she was pregnant. We see this is underwear wearing era of Dr. Manhattan doing his go kablooey point at them. But there's a few things in this page that are kind of weird. Adrian says, but I knew in the past John watched a comedian shoot and kill a pregnant woman and had done nothing. Okay, failing to perform an action is not the same as committing the action yourself. Now, from what we've seen with Dr. Manhattan, going back to the original Watchmen, he would do his kablooey point, but he did it during war. He did it during Vietnam. He did it to Rorschach because Rorschach was about to spill Adrian's secrets that were kind of, how he kind of created world peace temporarily. But he doesn't just blow up bank robbers. Now, we know that John was out of touch, with humanity and, was seeing himself becoming more godlike, but that just seems very out of character. I don't think that John spared them, because, the pregnancy or whatever. I don't think he was ever going to kill them in the first place. And then we get this panel, which we need to unpack this panel. So, this boy, Marionette and Mime's child, this boy would be adopted by a couple, and he would bring incredible joy to a woman who had been very important to John at one point in his life. And as we see, he's saying, "Good morning, Mrs. Hollis," and the child saying, "Hi, Mom." Okay, so we know this is Dan and Lori, Night Owl, and the Silk Spectre. Spectre who dated John. Okay, this is, as we know in Watchmen, they went underground, they, took up fake identities, Hollis after the first Night Owl. But this boy would be adopted by a couple, and he would bring incredible joy to a woman who had been very important. Now let's look at this child. Longish blonde hair. Didn't they show him have black hair? Okay, okay, fine. Maybe they're dyeing the child's hair like they dye their hair. Okay. Wearing, obviously, pink. That doesn't look like boy socks. Are those little shoes? It's hard to tell if it's just a design on the sock or... but they're still kind of pinkish lavender. Those are obviously dolls with a dollhouse and a bed. These are... Now, before you start going, "Oh, you're assuming a gender." Yeah, no, let's be honest. This is stereotypical. Anyone who looked at this would think it's a little girl. So it's weird to have it like this, to be drawn like this, but to say that it's a boy. Now, weird theory, I'm not sure I buy it, but are they trying to say that Dan, that Night Owl, is the child of Marionette and the Mime? Because they said the boy would be adopted by a couple, never said this couple, just by a couple, and he would bring incredible joy to a woman who had been very important to John at one time in his life. Okay, so maybe he's making Lori happy. Now, of course, that would involve time travel shenanigans, taking their child back in time to be raised by Night Owl's parents. As we know, Night Owl's father was an industrialist, and that's how he was rich, and he was able to, afford his crime-fighting career. So I don't think it's that, but I'm not ruling that out because that's very weird that they'd be touching on a trans issue. It just seems like that would be too much to throw into this, but what do I know? Then we get this splash page here, well, not splash page, but this big panel that says why John came to the DC universe. A world of extremes impossible to reconcile. And let me read this. A schizophrenic society overrun with superpowers and costumes. He refused to help us, obsessed with an impending confrontation with Superman that would lead to his own destruction, or this universe's. But it was clear why John had ventured here, to be with his own. He refused to help us, believing that a confrontation with Superman would lead to his or this universe's oblivion. Wait a minute. He refused to help us, obsessed with an impending confrontation with Superman that would lead to his own destruction, or this universe's. He refused to help us, believing that a confrontation with Superman would lead to his or this universe's oblivion. Why did we almost repeat that verbatim? Just the ending of it changed. Um, that's what I'm saying. There's some editorial stuff in that. I don't believe that's sloppy. That's sloppy to be done 2 panels apart to be such an obvious repetition. And Adrian's not shown to repeat himself like that. So Adrian is basically explaining what he's been up to, his plan, how he set things in motion. The Superman theory was, not completely true, but it was partly true. He helped plant the seeds to get the media focused on Firestorm, and used Bubastis Jr., Bubastis 2, Little Bubastis, um, with his energy eye there, to trigger Firestorm and to make it look like John did it. So they'd be tracking John's energy and would go to Mars where John had been. Okay, so that makes sense there. The president's evacuating as all the metahumans show up, and wait, why is a manhunter with them? I mean, that looks like one of the robot manhunters, not one of the not invasion. What was the storyline back? Millennium. Um, yeah, this looks like it's a robot. Why would it be with Black? You know what? I don't even care anymore. So Adrian asks Saturn Girl, "Does Superman remember you?" She kind of pauses. No. And then she starts fading out from existence. I don't feel so good, Mr. Vite. So, the whole thing with Rebirth. Saturn Girl. Back in the past. She's been locked up in Arkham. Now she's been locked up with Adrian. Only to fade from history. What was her point? What was the point of her in all this? In the past couple years that this has been building up? And he tells Johnny, "Oh, quit crying, old man. You're from the past, and the past won't be erased." You see, you got the lantern there. And so now we come to the end of issue 11. Superman is facing all the villains, and that's when he runs into, finally, Blue Dong, Dr. Manhattan. It is Superman. It is me. It is us. It is the world. It is time. And then Adrian, it's time. Yeah, then we have LexCorp's little notes about the photographs he's collected and how it's just repeated. But one of the photographs he has is actually a different shot from the cover of The Flash of Two Worlds, where Jake Garrick and Barry Allen first meet up. So yeah, that's a run through of this issue. Not too impressed with it, I'm going to be honest. This was one of the weak ones. For a series that has been delayed as this one, there are too many editorial mistakes. There is no reason for that horrible absolute-y typo, especially when it's in a larger font and, bold as it was. The dialogue repetition, even that panel, unless they're trying to insinuate that the child, the baby, is not marionettes and mimes. Little nitpicks, but when you've been waiting and waiting and following this as long as, as we all have been, it's not good. That's the type of stuff that Marvel editors let slip by, because Marvel editors don't do crap. They just sign the paycheck. So yeah, this issue, kind of weak. I don't see how this, unless the 12th issue is like double sized, how they're going to tie this all together. So yeah, I'm going to go probably 230 on this. I'm going to go 230. Not one of the strongest ones, especially as it's just before the last issue. And given how good issues 9 and 10 were, those were great issues. This one seemed kind of lackluster. It almost seemed like it was trying to write out some of the characters, like get Rorschach off the table, and things that had been built up from Rebirth that were leading into this, like things like the mystery of the three Jokers, the return of the JSA. I don't see how they're just I don't think this book's really going to be referenced again, and which is sad because even Heroes in Crisis is being referenced because this week's Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy takes place after that. It follows that as well. Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy. That's post Heroes in Crisis Poison Ivy. So yeah, it's kind of a shame, such huge hopes for this. I'm still going to pick up the final issue. I've still been enjoying the story overall. I'm not, I love Watchmen. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, only Alan Moore can do it. No, I'm curious. So far, I don't think this has been as bad as some of the purists like to say, but that's just my take. Let me know your thoughts. I know opinions are split on this. I've seen people who are like me who have been enjoying it, and some people who absolutely hate this book. And I don't know, maybe because modern comics have gotten so bad that this you know seems like Shakespeare next to it. So, and you have a lot of people that just hate Jeff Johns. The art, the art's been good. Um, it's been good as it's been, throughout the series. I think it's a good match to compare, modern day to the original Watchmen. So, but overall, I'm still gonna go 230 on this. 230. Um, I don't think this is a good penultimate issue. So, but anyway, as always, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.